All right, folks. Prepare for trouble. Make it double. To protect the world from devastation, to unite all people within our nation, to denounce the evils of truth and love, to extend our reach to the stars above. Jesse, James, Team Rocket, blast off at the speed of light. Surrender now or prepare to fight. Meow? That's right. I never actually thought that this would be a thing that I get to do, but I'm doing it. I hope everyone is having a fabulous morning. My name is Voodoo Val, and today I am Jesse from Team Rocket. I realize that Jesse is not technically a supervillain, but he really tries very hard, and even though he's very bad at his job, I decided to honor him today, and be and be Jesse, James. So I've got Jesse with me. I am James. We have Meowth, and we are going to dive into the Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge this morning. As Keanu would say, whoa. What is up, General Kenobi? Hello there. I wonder if you've brought me any lightsabers for my collection. All right, so we have a lot to cover today, and I don't want to waste any of our time because we are not only going to be jumping into Photoshop and doing our final challenge, which is creating a poster today, but we will also be jumping into the iPad because I'm gonna do like a little bit of work on the iPad, and then I'm going to save it to my Cloud Docs and jump into everything in Photoshop. So right quick. When I start to the night in India. What's up, Ishant? It's good to see you, my friend. All right, so I'm going to jump over to the landing page and kind of show you folks how you can get started with me. This is what the landing page looks like. If you're over on YouTube, by the way, and you're wondering who I'm talking to in the chat, please head over to behance.net/live because that is where I am reading the chat and it's where the party is happening. But yeah, behance.net/challenge/Photoshop is the landing page here, and you'll know you're in the right place if you see that we have our August 17th through August 28th date listed up here. And if you scroll down, you'll see all of the challenges we have done thus far that have been unlocked every day to you. And then you'll see the poster design challenge, which is what we're working on today. You can hit that Get Started button, which will take you to the Dropbox page. And the starter file is a huge collection of my mood board and my finished projects that I have been collecting over this 2-week course. You guys know, if you were here for any of the other challenges, that I've been like reverting and going back to the challenge 1 mood board over and over again to grab colors, to grab assets and resources, and to store all of my files. And I've been trying to encourage you guys to do the same. So you guys have all of my files for the poster, and the poster project is creating a superhero or supervillain themed poster and trying to incorporate some of the previous challenge knowledge into the creation. So more of like a combo. I know some of you were actually slowly creating a composite already with all of the things that you've been making. So this is an excellent time to put some finishing touches on that, create something new along those lines, and share it with the community. So I'm going to jump in real quick. Let me turn on my iPad and make sure that I am mirrored properly because this is not something that I do all the time. Okay. Here, I think I've got it. Ta-da! I'm sure everyone is very surprised at my background. I was almost Kylo Ren today, but I was like, people are probably expecting me to show up dressed as Kylo Ren, so I won't do that. So I'm going to go into Photoshop, and I have done this once. Just in case the connection was a little slower and we don't waste any time when it comes to updating my cloud documents. But I am going to start it from scratch first, and then I'll pull up the one that I made in Photoshop if it doesn't update in like a heartbeat, because I don't want to waste any time. So what I'm going to do first on iPad is the iPad version of Photoshop is I'm going to actually create the background for my poster. So I'm just going to hit create new down at the bottom there. I'm going to go with a 17 or 11 by 17 because that is my favorite size for posters. And I'm going to leave it at the 300 DPI, which is a fairly large file, I will say, but that is what I'm used to working with. So I'm just going to hit create, and it is going to make me a new file like so. I want to make sure that you guys can see all of my files or all of my little things like so. I think my my border for my iPad is a little small, but that is okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start adding in some textures and things into here, and we're going to create our background, and then we're going to work on it in Photoshop for a desktop. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually drop in one of my favorite textures, a noise texture. Very surprising. So I'm going to come down here to my little picture icon, and it asks me if I want to import photos, files, from libraries, or from my camera. And I'm just going to go to files, and I'm going to search for one of my favorite True Grit textures, let it load in there, and I am going to drag this out and kind of cover my canvas with this nifty texture, and I'm going to hit done. Now, one thing that I'm going to do with this is kind of make like a tiled border almost for my project. I'm going to add some clipped adjustments and everything to kind of change the colors here instead of paint bucketing colors only. So that is going to be pretty neat, I think. First, I'm going to actually come back down to my background, and I'm going to change the color of my background because I want it to be a little darker, because I want to be able to edit the transparency of the texture I just brought in. So all I had to do is click that little menu up at the top right, and then I'm going to say add clipped adjustments, and I'm going to hit hue and saturation, and I'm just going to bump the background color down, and perfect. And you can't really see it, but if I unhide my texture, you can see that. And then on this one, I'm going to add a clipped adjustment. Or no, actually, let's go into blending modes. I'm going to go into like a multiply blending mode just to make this kind of dark. And then I'm going to add a color over the top of it. So I'm going to hit new layer. I'm going to grab my paint bucket tool and my colors. I like this color. It's kind of like a dark greenish blue. And I am going to paint bucket here. I'm going to put it on a blending mode for, let's see, maybe like an overlay. You can barely see it, but that's kind of the way I want it, because I want the back portion of this background to be pretty dark. I'm going to add an adjustment here as well. I'm going to add hue and saturation. I can brighten it a little bit and bring the saturation down just slightly, and then I can also kind of drag my sliders left and right to figure out what color I want this to be. I want it to be pretty subtle, because I'm going to put some pretty wacky colors over it in Photoshop, but I don't want to get too carried away here. So that'll work for me, but what I'm going to do before I jump into Photoshop is I'm actually going to group all these together, and I'm going to make myself a tile of sorts in the center of my file. Let me make sure nobody's asking any questions. Good way to check and see who's paying attention in chat, it seems. Is it violet? It is. It is my hair, you mean? Oh, yes. Okay. So I am going to group everything together by beginning multi-select mode. I'm going to select all of my layers here, group it together, and I'm going to duplicate this group, and I'm going to merge it together, And then I'm going to crop because it is going to leave like a little bit of stuff around the edges. And since I'm going to transform this new tile I'm making right now, I am going to crop around the edges to make sure I don't have anything left from that. I'm going to hit my transform, and I am going to actually hold my little button here and drag so that I'm scaling from the center. And I'm going to make this small, and then I'm going to flip it vertical and say done. And I'm going to add a quick clipped adjustment to this as well. I'm going to make it just a little bit brighter, and I'm going to change the color just slightly, but not too much, like that. And that is going to be it for my background. That's about how I'm going to start adding some cool stuff, some text and things over the top of this in Photoshop on the desktop, but that is just how like you can kind of jump into iPad and then jump directly into work over in Photoshop. So if I grab Photoshop over here, I'm going to pop over to my desktop version right quick. Here we go. Go over to my screen here. Excellent. And when I jump back into the home on my iPad, it saves everything automatically, so that I have all of my files that I just worked on created. It's thinking a little bit because I did just finish this. So this is my Untitled 19 because I didn't name that file. But I did, like I said, I did make like kind of the same thing a little bit earlier. Just in case it took like a couple of minutes. So, because 1 or 2 minutes seems to be the basic wait time for me personally, at least, with my connection and stuff in my internet and in the Creative Cloud. So just so we don't have to wait through that, I am going to jump into the exact same thing I made here, and this is exactly what it will look like basically when I open up a file that I've created in the iPad version of Photoshop in the desktop version. So I have my group exactly like I made it. I have my clipped adjustment layers and stuff exactly like I put them down, and I can even come in here and I can change it. I can change all of the stuff that I have done. I can make everything brighter. I can make it more saturated. I can edit it exactly as I would if I was still over in the iPad version, which is pretty darn cool, I think. It transfers pretty flawlessly, and it's very easy to use. So I think I do actually want to make this still a little bit darker. And I realize that it's dark enough that it's almost invisible, but I'm gonna add a stroke to this. So now that we're here, this is how I'm gonna lay out my poster. Yes, Team Rocket. It's been years since you watched that. I hope that you are enjoying the cosplay for today, because I had a lot of fun doing the whole reenactment of the theme of Team Rocket just before we started today. It was a blast. Had a good time. Okay, so I am going to also group the tile as well. I'm going to call these background and tile. Boom. And I am going to add a stroke to the outside of my tile here. Let me do outside, make it a little larger, like a 5. That's good for me. I'm going to say okay, and then I'm going to throw some text in here. Grab my text tool, I'm going to hit T on my keyboard, and I'm going to add like a tagline or slogan. I'm going to put, because this is obviously going to be a villain's poster, so I'm going to add Terrors of the Night or something like that. That sounds cool. Terrors of the Night, because villains totally are. And I'm going to change this to white. And I'm going to change my font to Montserrat. And I'm going to put it on thin. And I'm going to kind of resize this a little bit to make it fit to the shape of the bottom of my my little tile here. That works for me. Boom. And now I am going to grab this whole tile and I'm going to center it like so, because I want the same distance from the top of the tile as I want from the bottom of my text. And then I'm going to add like my main like boom crazy text. And you guys know I've been loving the 80s retro wave kind of vibe lately with like big chrome craziness. So I am going to go ahead and I'm going to write villains, boom. And I am going to change this to the kindness font, and I'm going to resize, and then I'm going to make it chrome. But first I'm going to jump into my characters panel like we did before, and I am going to kind of scooch these in closer together. I'm going to resize it like so, and I'm also going to use the skew effect for transform because I just want it to be like kind of cascading up like so, which I think looks neat. So I'm going to say villains, terrors of the night, and then I'm going to double click and I'm going to go and ahead and add some like bevel and emboss. So if I click bevel and emboss, I mean that already looks great because it does kind of take my previous like any of the previous meddlings that I had in the structure and shading settings that I was doing from when I last used it. It does add stuff in, but I'm gonna noodle around with it just a little bit just so that everyone can see how you can come in and change things around just a little bit to ooh, there we go. That makes it look like even brighter and shinier. I like this. Let's see. I'm into that. I'm into that right there. I'm gonna click around a little bit and kind of make sure that one looks pretty good too. That's cool. That's pretty chromy. That's pretty sick. So I'm gonna leave it like that. I think you can change the depth of this if you want. You can really get in here and add all kinds of pretty cool effects. It's really up to you what you decide you want to add. You can change your opacity of like your highlights and shadows. You can change the angle and the way that everything kind of lines up. You can change the gloss contour. You can change whether you want it to be like a smooth technique and inner bevel, or if you want more of a pillow emboss, or you want this to be like chiseled hard. For this particular thing, it looks much better if it's smooth, and it gives me just kind of a nice chromy feel to it. Then I am going to grab a new texture. I'm going to jump into my libraries. I'm going to grab one of my handy dandy things. Let me see if I can find it. I think it's probably, there we go. I've got like this cool Milky Way texture that I like. You guys know I love using space textures and things. I'm going to add just a texture to this tile because I want to make it a little more interesting. I'm going to right click it and put it on a clipping mask. Ta-da! Which looks pretty cool. And then I'm going to flip through my blending modes. I'm going to flip through my blending modes and I'm going to find something that is interesting. And then we're going to start diving into the starter file because the starter file has some cool stuff in it. The starter file's got all of my assets that I have been creating throughout these challenges thus far. And I want to grab one of those and, ooh, what happened to my text down there? I want to grab one of those, and I want to kind of use one of the cool pieces that I made as the focal point of this. Even though I have like a pretty focal like villains thing going on, I still want to add one more item to this to make it look super cool. And I think that item is actually going to be my mask. So let me pull up my starter file, shall we? Let me grab here, starter file. I'm gonna open this big hunkin' thing. And so this has all the stuff that I've created, all the things that I've finished, all the stuff that I've done. It has all of the photos, the smart objects for the photos that I have used during these challenges, and all the blank items that I haven't applied anything to at all, so that you can start from scratch with certain things. I've got some of my textures in here, my fonts that I've used, and some of the colors I've been referring to. But I'm going to grab my mask because I like this mask and I think the colors work really well. So I'm going to grab my mask, I'm going to say okay, and I'm going to throw this guy in here like so. Boom, just going to make kind of a cool nifty thing like that. And that looks neat, but I feel like I kind of want the background to like kind of be like more of a bluey color to match. So I'm going to add a adjustment layer here. I'm going to add a, let's see, like a hue and saturation layer to kind of make this more blue. There we go. That works for me. And that kind of still makes our little tile in the back here like different than the related blue of the background and the mask, which is kind of neat. And then I'm going to add some finishing touches because we're coming up on the end of the stream here. And I'm going to do like a little trick that I like to do when it comes to using elements to apply with a blend mode that are not cut out of their black backgrounds with the use of the screen blending mode, because I want to add some cool flares to this, but I also don't want to spend the time to cut this little flare out, because if you look at it, I'm going to drag this up to the top. If you look at this thing, that would be kind of a pain to do, especially when we don't have very much time. So I'm going to simply apply a screen to it, because then it looks like I did cut it out. It looks perfect, as if I just found the asset this way instead of it having its own background. And I'm going to add some little shine oddness to this. Why? Because if this was my supervillain mask, it would have some weird shine on it. I honestly couldn't tell you why the shine is necessary, other than I think it looks really cool. I'm going to add like 3 of these, just strange little shine things like so, just to make it look super cool. And how much time do we have left? Just like 2 or 3 minutes. Another thing I could do actually is I could add a let's see, my villains here. I could add like a gradient overlay to villains if I wanted to, just to give it a little extra shine. So let's see, gradient. Oh, actually, oh no, that does look cool. That does look sick. I'm gonna scroll through my blending modes just in case there's something else that looks a little niftier, but this may do it for us. That looks cool. So what I might actually do is create a new layer. I'm gonna make that a clipping mask. I'm gonna grab my brush, make sure I'm on a soft round brush. Yes, I am. And I'm going to grab white, and I'm going to, if I can, convert this to a smart object. I'm going to grab white, and I'm going to kind of dab some color in here, and then put that on a blending mode too, to kind of make it like extra shiny, so that I'm not losing any of the kind of like white-ish color in there. If that works, maybe. Ooh, there we go. And I'm gonna tone, let's see. That kind of works. I might not actually do that, because I think I would probably have to do a lot more detail in there, which we don't have time for. So I'm just gonna leave it actually more of a black and white. We'll take the gradient overlay and stuff off of it for now. But I might come back to it and kind of play with some cool colors I can add. But that is like my strangely classy villains poster. And I like it. It's a little strange, it's a little weird, and it's got some cool stuff going on, but it's also like really simple. If I had some more time, I might put in some more textures and things into the back of it, or maybe play with some outer glow and make things like really pop. But I quite like it, actually. And Malik, I look over to the chat and Malik is just saying bacon. I don't know what you're saying bacon for, but I'm here for it. I love bacon. But yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed this daily creative challenge. I should like strike a pose. There we go. There we go. Thank you very much for joining me and Jesse and Meowth. You guys are fabulous and wonderful, and I'm so glad that you all had a good time. Clarissa says it's been a great 2 weeks. Thank you, thank you. I'm so happy you guys enjoyed it. Thank you for letting me show up to work in costume. You guys are literally the raddest people I know. So I will see you folks next week, actually, for another design off. So until then, I'm gonna take off. But happy designing, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your day or evening, and keep creating. Adios, folks.